What is up, book babes? Welcome back to another review for our book club, Reading Out Loud Book Club. My name is Kiana, for those of you who don't know, and make sure you guys are subscribed to my YouTube channel, like this video, and comment down below what part of the world you guys are coming from. For those of you who have been watching and are subscribed, you probably noticed I took a little hiatus for making videos, and I'll explain why in this video. So I actually moved twice within the last 4 months, and so as you can imagine, my time has been very consumed with the moves, and I haven't really had much time to film, especially with me finishing school and working. I just recently transitioned job positions, so it's taken a lot out of me, and especially with us all being in a pandemic, it's just been a lot. So I haven't been filming, but I'm hoping that I can be more consistent now that I'm settled down. So in today's video, I'm going to be discussing the Diviners Quartet, and I participated in a read-along for this quartet, which actually took place this time last year. And I actually finished the quartet a few months ago, and I began vlogging it when I had first moved to the other house that I was living in. But since I had to move, I couldn't finish vlogging it. So here I am today to give my review on the Diviners Quartet. The genre of these books is paranormal historical fiction, so it is a tad bit scary, which was great because we began reading it around Halloween time, and these are like the scariest books that I've read in years. So if you guys want to hear all about these books by Libba Ray, then please continue watching. The first book in this quartet is titled The Diviners, and I actually got the neon covered editions in all of the books because I really liked the effect. So I really loved this first book. I think that this was such a great opener to the rest of the quartet, and I had anticipated that it would be, and it definitely delivered. I think that this book at least deserves a lot more hype. So in this first book, we meet our main character, Evie O'Neill, who is a diviner, and what that essentially means is that she has a supernatural power that will ultimately help her in the future to solve the mystery of this really bad spirit that's terrorizing the citizens of New York and really all over the country. But this story mainly takes place in New York and is set in the 1920s. Now at first I really liked the main character and how the author made her character very distinct. She's a jokester and a little defiant. She definitely has her own trauma and baggage, but I thought she would be a good main lead because she's a flapper, and I just felt like she would take us on a really good adventure, and I really wanted to read the book from the perspective of a flapper. But that quickly took a turn because I had really high hopes for her, and that she wouldn't turn out to be like your typical terrible best friend and backstab her best friend for a boy, which actually turned out to be the case. And in the grand scheme of things, it's like a really small aspect in this book, but it really made a difference in how I view Evie. Okay, so moving along into the story, in my opinion, I think that this story is very fast-paced, and we quickly learn that Evie has to move from her hometown of Zenith, Ohio, to live in New York with her uncle Will after a incident that happened with her hometown friends that would have like people talking about her and her family very negatively. Ironically, she already has this best friend who lives in New York named Mabel, so it becomes BBLU and they link up, and it becomes Mabel and Evie take on New York City. So everything that's going on with this spirit or killer is definitely mysterious, and I almost cannot finish this book because I was so terrified. It's really scary. I could not read this book at night, and I got really scared one night, and like my boyfriend was like freaking me out because he was like saying it's an Illuminati book and that I need to burn it, but I just had to keep reminding myself that it's just fiction. I love the atmosphere and the writing. The fact that it's set in New York just makes things a little bit more eerie, and I really like the dialogue and all of the 1920s slang. I think that it adds a hint of humor, which in my opinion, I think is really good because it's always nice to have a little bit of humor when it's like a really scary book or has a lot of controversial elements. There are tons of trigger warnings in this book. Let me tell you, there is domestic violence, abortion, racism, death of a sibling, death of a spouse, animal cruelty, violence. The list goes on and on. It's like every character in this story has their own secrets, and that just adds to the mystery. And this book deals with a great deal of loss. It's almost as if like every character has lost someone in this book, so it's really a touchy type of book. It felt like this book was supposed to be character and plot driven, but the overall development of the characters initially was very slow, and it didn't really have that wow factor, so I really wasn't invested in these characters, and that was really unfortunate because I really liked the book. The subplots and the main plots are really what make this book, so it's more plot driven than character, and I like both elements in my books, so that's what I really would have hoped for. And I think that the characters' descriptions could have been a lot more vivid. They're not really descriptive, and I guess that kind of like plays into the whole 1920s theme because everything just seemed really black and white to me. But this book also includes LGBTQ voices and diverse characters and voices. I can tell that the author really did put in a lot of effort into the research and remain true to the time of the era. This book is definitely creepy, and it made me want to continue reading the book into the next book. This book also has like a discussion in the back to guide the readers into the next book, and book one definitely left me asking a ton of questions. The suspense literally just hangs in the air in this book. These books are very long, just a heads up if you do not like reading long books. I went back and forth between rating it a 5 stars or 4 stars, and now that I'm reflecting, I really should have rated this book a 3 stars, but I actually gave it a 5 stars, but that rating is totally inaccurate for me. The second book is Layer of Dreams in this neon green color, and the plot of this book is 100% different from the first book, which I discovered that all of the plots are different in these books, and I'm not sure if that is like a typical thing. I haven't read mini quartets in the past, but I just kind of played along with it. This book is surprisingly just as good as book one, if not better. It's very well written and structured, so I think that it makes for a really great book too. Another good thing that I would say is that this quartet does a really great job of showing the diversity of New York in the 1920s, and it's very consistent as far as the style of writing, the characters, and the overall setting. In this book, we get introduced to a ton of new characters, and some of the dormant characters from book one really come to life in this book, and I loved meeting all of the new secondary characters. I think that they were great additions to this book, and they really flourished throughout this book. So there's Harry, who we actually met in the first book, but he doesn't really come into play until the second book, and we discover that he's also a diviner, and we learn more about his powers, and then he's paired with a new secondary character named Ling, who we soon discover has a disability, so there's more rep there. I really love Ling. I think that she just really spices things up a little bit more. So this is a book where my feelings towards Evie drastically change, and that's because she rises to fame, but I just feel like she sells her soul for her integrity, and I feel like her powers should definitely be used for good and not for a show, but I guess that just adds to her overall character development, which is why I was a little reluctant to just immediately judge her. There's definitely some compassion there for her because she is our main character. In this book, the fake dating trope is a theme, and this book kept me on my toes and anticipating the next book. The plot development is really good. The only thing about this book is that the plot development is really slow, and it has more political intrigue rather than it being scary. So it was much easier for me to read because it wasn't scary, but it was rather just eerie and mysterious. The trigger warnings in this book include racism, I think a fake suicide, and like prostitution. Overall, I really enjoyed book two, and I definitely would encourage you guys to read book two if you've already read the first book. The third and last book in this quartet that I read is Before the Devil Breaks You by Libba Bray, and if you're wondering why this is the last book that I read in this quartet, it is because I DNF'd this book. There was just a lot going on, and then like not enough going on to keep my focus all at once, so I really couldn't finish this book. There is a ton of development from the first book to this third book, and we see more things becoming revealed, so that's really good, and then the pacing to the plot is really good as well. And we already know my thoughts and feelings towards Evie. However, in the third book, I really began to analyze my feelings towards her, and I think it's safe to say that books like these with horrible main characters are rare, and we typically always enjoy or like the main characters, but the author really just makes it so tough to enjoy Evie as a main character, and she's almost insufferable, and I just find that it makes this series or quartet that much more interesting. Another character that I was really disappointed to find that I disliked was Will, Uncle Will, because he had so many secrets that he was hiding, and then they all became revealed in book 3, and I just viewed him so differently. It was almost as if his honor just was completely snatched in this book. This book is crazy, and I think that this just might be one of the most sensitive books in the quartet. One of the huge themes that we see play into this book is mental illness. If you're reading this book, it can be quite intimidating because it is thick. However, I would encourage you to continue reading this book because things get really real in book 3. I cannot speak to book 4 because I have not read that book. So that is where we're going to end this review. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and make sure you subscribe to my YouTube channel for more bookish content and more. Follow me at For Love and Kiana. I just recently changed my handles. So yeah, I'll see you guys in my next video. Until next time, bye.